Help me reach 1,000 subscribes. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. I read every comment. Thanks. I never thought silence could be louder than shouting, but that was before I started noticing how Elizabeth behaved at work. We'd been married 9 years. Not perfect, but steady, built on routines, shared calendars, quiet dinners, and trust that didn't need announcing. I'm James, 38, project manager for a logistics firm in Manchester. Elizabeth worked in the same office building, different department, marketing. We used to joke about sharing a commute and lunch breaks. That joke stopped being funny last winter. It began with small things. Elizabeth dressed differently for work. Not inappropriate, just sharper. Clothes chosen with intention. She lingered longer in front of the mirror. Checked her phone more than usual. When I asked, she laughed and said she was just feeling confident again. I told myself confidence was healthy. Marriage doesn't mean possession. I believed that. Then there was Daniel. At first, just a name. Daniel says the campaign needs another angle. Always Daniel. Familiar. Easy. Still, I said nothing. Jealousy without proof is insecurity, and I wasn't going to be that man. The first time I saw them together, it was accidental. I skipped my usual coffee stop and walked past the glass meeting rooms. Elizabeth was leaning against a desk, laughing. Real laughter. Daniel stood close. Too close. His hand brushed her arm. She didn't move away. I went back to my office and finished the day like nothing happened. That night, she talked about work nonstop, but Daniel's name never came up. I lay awake, replaying the scene. The closeness. The way her smile lingered. If you've ever felt that quiet shift, you know how unsettling it is. If this moment feels familiar to you, press like so this story reaches others who felt the same silent doubt. Over the next weeks, the pattern repeated. Elizabeth stayed later. Her phone stayed face down. She took calls on the balcony. Her answers became summaries instead of stories. I started eating lunch alone, claiming deadlines. I didn't want to walk past that meeting room again. One afternoon, I did see it. Elizabeth and Daniel stood near the elevators. She was all over him, laughing, touching his sleeve, leaning in like the rest of the office didn't exist. He said something that made her tilt her head back and smile wide. That smile. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger. Recognition. I stepped forward. I didn't raise my voice. I just stopped a few feet away and looked at her. Really looked. I let my face go still, my eyes steady. Elizabeth felt it before she saw me. Her laughter cut off. Her hand dropped from Daniel's arm. The smile drained from her face. Daniel stepped back. Elizabeth's cheeks flushed, but she said nothing. The silence stretched as people passed by. I nodded once, turned, and walked away. What would you have done in that moment? Comment below, walk away, confront immediately, or stay quiet and watch. That night, Elizabeth was attentive. She asked about my day, cooked dinner, touched my arm. It felt rehearsed. I responded evenly. Inside, I was cataloging details, building a picture I couldn't ignore. Trust doesn't shatter all at once. It erodes. If you believe quiet boundaries matter more than loud arguments, comment the word clarity below. I went to bed early. Elizabeth stayed up, scrolling through her phone, the glow lighting her face. Between the ceiling fan's slow turns and the hum of the city outside, I realized this wasn't about jealousy anymore. It was about respect. And respect, once questioned, demands answers. I didn't know it yet, but the next few days would force every truth into the open. I stayed quiet the next morning, watching how she moved around the kitchen. Careful, measured, like someone aware of being watched. She kissed my cheek before leaving, a gesture that used to feel natural, now felt placed. At work. Emails from her popped up that said nothing and everything. I replied professionally, calmly. The space between us grew heavier, charged with things unsaid. I knew patience would reveal more than confrontation ever could. Sometimes the hardest move is waiting, letting people show who they are clearly. The following days unfolded with a strange calm, the kind that settles right before something breaks. Elizabeth didn't mention Daniel, and I didn't ask. Instead, I watched, Patterns don't lie when you give them space. She checked her phone the moment she thought I wasn't looking. She angled the screen away in bed. She showered later than usual, humming softly, like she was somewhere else entirely. By Thursday, the office felt smaller, tighter. I caught Daniel glancing my way more than once. His confidence dulled. Elizabeth avoided eye contact in shared spaces. That told me enough. Guilt has weight. You can see it in how people move. That afternoon, I stayed late on purpose. From my desk, I could see the corridor outside her department. At 6:12 p.m., Elizabeth walked out with Daniel. Not touching this time. Careful, controlled. They stopped near the exit, speaking in low voices. She shook her head. He reached for her hand. She pulled back. I didn't interrupt. I didn't need to. At home, Elizabeth finally spoke. "You've been distant," she said, folding laundry that didn't need folding. I met her eyes. "So have you." The room went quiet. She inhaled sharply. "You're imagining things." I shook my head. "No, I'm noticing them." She sat down, suddenly tired. The truth spilled out slowly, unevenly. Emotional connection. Feeling seen. Nothing physical, she insisted. I didn't argue definitions. Betrayal doesn't start in beds. It starts in choices. She cried, apologized, promised boundaries. I listened, calmly. When she finished, I said, "I don't compete for my place in my own marriage." The next morning, Elizabeth asked for space. I agreed. Space clarifies intentions. Over the weekend, I packed essentials and stayed with my brother. No dramatic exit, just distance. If this part of the story resonated, consider sharing it with someone who values quiet strength over loud conflict. Monday brought an email from HR. Daniel had requested a department transfer. Elizabeth hadn't. That told me everything. She came home early, eyes red, voice shaking. He crossed a line. She said, I nodded. You opened the door. The difference matters. We talked for hours. Honest, uncomfortable conversations most couples avoid until it's too late. Counseling, transparency, rebuilding trust brick by brick. I didn't promise forgiveness. I promised fairness. There's a difference. Do you believe trust can truly be rebuilt after emotional betrayal? Share your perspective in the comments. This is a conversation worth having. Weeks passed. Elizabeth changed jobs, deleted contacts. Let me see everything without being asked. Effort returned to her voice, not just her words. I watched closely, not as a guard, but as a man who had learned the cost of ignoring his instincts. One evening, as we walked through the city, Elizabeth squeezed my hand. "Thank you for not humiliating me," she said quietly. I stopped and looked at her. Respect isn't proven by how loudly you react. It's proven by where you draw the line. I didn't stay because I was afraid to leave. I stayed because accountability showed up consistently. Some stories end with walking away. This one ended with boundaries being honored. That cold stare at the office wasn't anger. It was clarity, and clarity changes everything. If you've ever chosen self-respect over impulse, comment the word boundaries below so others know they're not alone. If this story helped you think differently about trust, like the video, share it thoughtfully, and subscribe for more stories that explore quiet